Milan ou Tripoli, Vilnius ou Benghazi, Paris, Moscou, on fait le bunga, bunga. Bangkok ou Bogota, Le Caire ou Jakarta, Gustavia, on fait le bunga, bunga.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the 2023 BungaCast Reading Club, where we're focusing on three big themes across the year: freedom, legitimacy, and globalization. So thank you to everyone who's been with us throughout this year so far, going through this question of freedom. As you'll probably know by now, the first 4 episodes of this year have been dedicated to Martin Hägglund and his 2019 book, This Life, Secular Faith and Spiritual Freedom, which we're going to continue to discuss today and try to wrap up by looking at some of the critics. But before that, hello Phil, hello George.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm quite excited to do this because although it's the 4th episode that we're doing now dedicated to the same book, now we're not focusing so directly on the book and kind of going back and reading these critiques and Hagelund's response to them and kind of thinking a little bit more broadly. I'm like, damn, that's a good book. Damn, that's a good book. And I'm happy to spend more time with it and its ideas.
It is actually really striking how much commentary it's produced and good, high qualities. I mean, as we'll talk about in a moment, I guess, but high quality discussion and also discussion in good faith as well. So much of the debate that you see on the left is, either fantastically tedious or bad faith or sectarian, that it is actually quite striking to see a measured debate from kind of people who are eminent in one way or another, willing to engage in a serious discussion about something ultimately basic about the nature of left-wing politics.
I mean, but does that suggest that it's sort of too easy? There's only one of the related to the reviews and kind of analyses that we read that kind of basically dismisses the book entirely. I mean, do you want everybody to enjoy, to love the book that you put out? Don't you want some people to just reject it and to dismiss
Well, which
it?
one? Which one rejected it?
So I think the Jodie Dean piece in the LA Review of Books was not too complimentary.
When Phil said the thing about bad faith, I actually immediately thought of that one. Anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
But neither did Robert Pippin, so I don't think it was the only one who rejected it. So
right, yeah. And quality goes beyond politics. It can be recognized, beyond even from differing political views. I think everyone would recognize that it's a good book. So anyway, in going through this, through Hagglund's important and inspiring but very readable book, and we've been going through chapter by chapter. Now what we want to do is, as I said in the last episode, try to kind of put his concepts to work. And we're going to do that by surveying how the book's been received and looking at the critiques it's attracted. And we want to be kind of thoroughgoing in doing this and understanding the reception and the critiques. And there's a whole bunch of debates about his book on Martin Hägglund's website, with some journals carrying multiple replies. There's a LA Review of Books symposium, and we've selected a couple from those to focus on. Kind of read a whole bunch of them and tried to narrow it down just a little bit, down to a couple of them, cutting out, for example, Jodie Dean's one, which Martin Hägglund responds to it by saying, Jodie Dean's claims are completely off target, and Dean manages to misconstrue not only my arguments, but those advanced by Marx, which is one of the reasons why I kind of excluded that one, not because it takes a strong line against Hägglund's book, but you've got to make cuts somewhere. And what I've tried to do in kind of selecting the pieces that we're going to discuss and the critiques that we're going to discuss is in focusing on those which, I guess, one, shed contrast, obviously, with Hagglund, and ideally, as much as possible, look at the politics of the question. These are often critiques questioning what the democratic socialism is that he's talking about, not just philosophical explorations about mortality, for example.
Yeah, because I mean, that is, if we had done all of the responses to the book, particularly the ones which are, there's a lot of, I guess, philosophy of religion responses, people basically dismissing the book from a religious point of view or getting engaged in theological debates of various sorts. That's not completely uninteresting.
Does
but I
God
think
exist?
I mean, yeah, we can pick that up some other time. But no, I mean, I think it is important to focus on the politics, right? Because that's the most in our discussions in the first 3 episodes. I think as it goes through the book and particularly towards a conclusion, where the rubber hits the road, as it is, that's where it's a bit more difficult to convince people, perhaps. But yeah, not to preempt too much of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. That's right. So we're going to try to tease out these lines of tension with Hagelund's thought and also compare that to what our issues have been with Hagelund as we've gone along. So just to give you a little preview of the questions that we're going to discuss. For example, what is Hagelund's notion of the post-capitalist democratic state? Who would actually work in the society? Do we need to be compelled or at least to have our work structured so that we actually work? And who's going to carry out this transition to this post-capitalist free society? Who is Hagelund's agent, political agent? Those are some of the questions that we're going to be discussing. And the way we're going to do this is we are going to go through various of the critics. Before that, just want to make a couple of announcements. You know where I'm going with this. We have local reading clubs in various cities across North America, Europe, and Australasia. And if you would like to join one, set one up, meet up with other people who are already meeting up, that would be great. Email us at info@bungacast.com or post on the Patreon post, and we'll try to put you in touch. Try to put you in touch with other people. And we'd also like to hear back from you. If you are meeting and have been meeting over the course of this year, for example, do send us an email or send us a message on Patreon and let us know how it's going. Let us know how many people you are, what you've thought of it so far. We want your feedback, obviously. So that'd be great. And then also just wanted to say thank you for joining us for this. This is the 4th episode in our kind of revamped reading club. We try to do something a little bit different each year. We've also incorporated your comments about how to improve this, basically. And we've tried to be a little bit more in depth on a couple of more limited works. And we hope you have taken from it as much as we have. So thank you for joining us. So just before we get to the critics, I thought we could each maybe restate what we individually thought was great or novel or troubling about this life. Phil?
I suppose very basically that it's, well, 2 things. So that Hagglund, that is, tries to ground an account of politics, a socialist politics that's grounded in freedom, but not just in kind of an abstract freedom in the sense of a commitment to a particular set of ideals or a particular kind of charter of rights, but in terms of ownership and control over your time. And in a kind of very basic philosophical sense. And I thought that was quite brilliant. And so the strong kind of existential rooting of an account of freedom and of what makes human life meaningful and worthwhile, and to offer that as the basis for a socialist politics, and then segueing from that into an account of how our time is not under our control and squandered given capitalist social organization such as it is. So those 2 things, it seems to me quite, like a minor, I'd say a minor stroke of genius. So even though the specific arguments he deploys are familiar in terms of, the critique of capitalism and the control over time is taken from, is just rendered from Marx's Capital, and the account of secular faith, as he put it, is an atheist critique of religion infused with, kind of existential themes. So all of that is kind of, it's not that there's anything, I don't think there's anything kind of especially novel in terms of a philosophical approach, but that it's fused together in a way that is original and compelling. And I think that's worthwhile.
George?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting opportunity to reflect on a book after you've read it. Normally, I kind of, finish reading a book, we might do an episode on it, and I might pick it up again later. But the fact that we've had, this extra time to read all the reviews after having finished it, yeah. So what has really stuck with me, I think the level of ambition. I mean, basically what Phil was saying, trying to condense all of those things though into one book. It's there is something which is pretty impressive about just that, like reaching for that level of systematicness within the philosophy and comprehensiveness. I think that the critique of religion, or the kind of early parts of the book, actually the humanism that comes through there, it's not like these kind of, oh, everybody who's religious is an idiot. It's trying to provide this imminent critique, i.e., religion or his particular interpretations can't live up to the promises that they give, because those ultimate end states are contradictory. I think another point, it's an attempt to try and value free time that doesn't defend or endorse UBI, which is, and we've obviously talked about how he gets to this position, but that's kind of, he hasn't gone for the easy answers. But I'm a bit wondering if some of the sheen for me has come off the whole book because of the conclusion. That kind of, he goes through Martin Luther King. He kind of, there's something maybe, and that's obviously what we're going to discuss today, around who's gonna do this, what are the politics of it, that, and maybe I'm expecting too much of it, of course, but that is something which, on reflection, I'm a bit like, that isn't that more the question today than how should we live, what are the ethical foundations, what are we gonna do about it? But no, I think very good choice, Alex, for the first book of the reading club, I have to say.
Well, yeah, and I mean, for me, I think kind of building on what you guys have said, it's this focus on freedom, and a freedom which isn't just a negative freedom, not just in the sense of non-interference as it's kind of understood in kind of liberal thought, or even a kind of the idea of non-domination, as in Republican thought, but of a notion of freedom which is not negative, also in the sense of this, that like, oh, okay, well, all this bad stuff that we have in capitalism, well, in this future free society under communism, everything's going to be great. But actually, he gives that a little bit of more structure than that. This freedom is not just, hey, you won't have to work, or you won't have to work as much, but it's a freedom which is quite intimately linked with notions of responsibility and commitment, which are not opposed, but as Hagglund has it, necessary complements. And I think that kind of gives it a little bit, gives his notion of freedom a much less flabby feel than I think a lot of discussions, and particularly kind of utopian visions, often present. Because it does that, and if you take him seriously and go, well, actually, this is a politics you want to build on, it cuts so much to the root. I mean, it's truly radical in that sense, that it ends up cutting through. It's like a knife that cuts through all these other layers of politics and political questions that we often deal with and discuss about redistribution or peace or recognition or state power, authority, republicanism, etc., and kind of goes, okay, well, let's forget, kind of to a certain extent, not forget everything we know about politics, but if this is the goal of a truly free life structured around our ability to determine collectively for ourselves what to do with our free time, then you can kind of push away a lot of other things from the side and start to reconstruct a politics on that basis. Or at least that's what it seems to promise, and we're going to come to that, because that's obviously one of the questions that we're going to deal with.
Before we do that, I just wanted to ask, because you said that the notion of freedom is not flabby, that Hagglund gives, and yeah, I think that actually hits the nail on the head. It is quite, it's quite a demanding, like all the best kind of existentialist philosophers, makes the point that freedom is not easy. It's not like it's not flabby. I guess
freedom
it's not like
free.
You can just,
it takes people like you and
well,
me.
I was seeing myself like heading towards that phrase, and so I had to kind of change direction at the last minute. But no, I think there is something in that as well. Like it is a book about about freedom, but it doesn't take these easy options, these kind of flabby. It's more sinewy, or whatever it would be, the alternative.
Sinewy. Yeah, I like that. That's good. Okay, so these critical pieces that we're going to go through to let you know just what they are, we're going to kind of take turns introducing them. But we have some pieces from the LA Review of Books Symposium, one by Walter Ben Michaels, one by Benjamin Kunkel, one by William Clare Roberts, and then we have a piece by Robert Pippin, the Hegel scholar, a piece by Leah Epi, and one more by Connell Cash. So anyway, we're going to go. Phil, why don't you start us off and tell us what the critique that you're presenting is? Well, hello, listener. I hope you like what you're hearing. It's a short excerpt from an episode that's available only to subscribers. Want to support BungaCast and get at least 2 original episodes a month? Sign up at patreon.com/BungaCast right now. $5 a month patrons get access to exclusive episodes like our in-depth analyses of present history. The big stuff that's happening right now. as well as chats with our regular guests, extended interviews with the key thinkers trying to understand our world today, and much more. For $10 a month, you join the BungaCast Reading Club, the place for those of us who are serious about equipping ourselves with the necessary intellectual tools for understanding the world and seeking to change it. Phil, George, and myself, Alex, look forward to seeing you there. Patreon.com/BungaCast.